Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Being Human Now show. I'm your host, Jennifer Locksmith, and today we have a very special guest with us, Christine Lamb. Christine is a student, teacher, and practitioner of Vedic astrology and Eastern philosophy, as well as an enthusiast of mythology and archetypal psychology. Born and raised outside of Philadelphia in a small Roman Catholic community, she began working in the church and performing service rituals at the age of 10. She discovered Eastern thought in her first encounter with Alan Watts in 2012, which sparked a curiosity that has yet to cease. Trading her rosary beads for mala, she immersed herself in a tantric Hatha yoga training in 2018 and began studying under multiple learned Vedic teachers shortly thereafter. Christine is continually inspired by the transformational works of Carl Jung, Marie-Louie von Franz, and Joseph Campbell, bringing the archetypes and the gods to life through story and song. She has a gift for translating the messages in the stars and interpreting dreams. She believes that we as humans are mediums through which divine will eternally creates, sustains, and dissolves. She now resides in the Sonoran Desert with her familiars, including a cat named Chicken, so she can read her beloved ancient books in the sunshine. And I would also like to add that Christine Lamb is a dear friend of mine. Christine, welcome to the Being Human Now show. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and give us a Vedic view of 2025. It's a pleasure to have you.
I am honored and elated, Jennifer.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess my first question, well, began being friends in 2020 when
Mhm.
the madness began, and we kind of
Yes,
bonded over that, right? And we've been
it's
friends
true.
ever since because it's so important to find people of like mind. Community is important, and I feel like it's going to be even more important going forward. So I guess my first question is, and a lot of people may be listening and have never heard of Vedic astrology. So would you mind telling us a bit about Vedic astrology and maybe how it differs from the other astrologies?
Sure. What you're referring to would probably be Western astrology, what most people would interpret as in astrology in
Mm-hmm.
the modern day age.
Yeah.
And it's a massive, massive philosophical question, honestly.
Yeah.
So the origin of Vedic astrology comes from an ancient Hindu text called the Vedas. And this text has volumes which are actually related to physical body parts, of which Vedic astrology is known as the eyes. So the eyes of the Vedas are the path of light, also known as Jyotish. It's a medium or a path to self-discovery and illumination. So the calculations are what's known as sidereal, which is a fixed system. Um, and it's also used by other ancient star study like Babylonian astrology. And this differs from Western astrology by a calculation of about 24 degrees compared to the tropical Western system. The Western system is taking into account the scientific narrative, um, the current scientific narrative of the Earth rotating on an axis. So it's actually an attempt to force the perspective to fit the Gregorian solar calendar by adjusting the ecliptic. Now, modern science is not a final conclusion. It's an ever-evolving process, as we know, and its discoveries can be fickle, to say the least. And I prefer to study the traditional system for this reason, a system that was outlined possibly by a more enlightened generation of humanity. And so the Hindu culture is so well preserved and revered. And one line of wisdom from the Vedas could be digested and unpacked for a lifetime. So, a couple other ways that the Vedic system differs from Western astrology is that it's rooted in the theories of reincarnation and the unending cycle of death and rebirth that we're all experiencing. So, ideas like karma and dharma play an important role in interpreting an individual chart. For example, if you pick up a tabloid in a grocery store line, you're going to see an interpretation that is based on Western astrology, tropical, ecliptic zodiac that I just spoke about, but also the Vedic system uses and gives more weight to your moon placement, actually, depending on the phase that the moon was in, whether it was waning or waxing, the dashas, which are an activation of the planets based on the day you were born and where the moon was placed. Um, so the moon gives a more detailed explanation of our experience of reality because the moon rules our mind, right? Our mental acuity to perceive this realm, this dance of light and dark, the shadows, the Maya, Plato's cave wall. How you interpret that is really seen by your perception and your mental health, ultimately. Um, so the Vedic system also has 27 moon constellation. This expands the astrological philosophical idea beyond the 12 zodiac signs. So this also creates divisional charts as well. So you can look at different aspects of your life based on the physical manifestation of your what's called your lugna chart or your ascendant chart versus your moon chart or your D9, which some claim is activated after marriage and or after the age of 35, 36, but it's always in play, these divisional charts. And the archetypal energy of the transits moving through these nakshatras, not just the 12 zodiac signs, have their own energy activation on a personal level, on a societal level. So Vedic astrology really encompasses the complicated sky clock that we live within and the cycles within cycles within cycles. Um, all of that said, our faith in any particular idea and life force behind that idea. So any practitioner, whether Western or Vedic, will come to their own conclusions and revelations based on the set of eyes they're looking through. You know, the system can become irrelevant with the right vision. So I think it doesn't really have to be about what's right or what's wrong. It's what works for you and what resonates for you.
Awesome. What a great explanation. That was awesome. So, so I guess my next question is, what drew you to Vedic astrology? Like, what was it that you were like, this is it, I'm studying this, you dedicated so much time and energy to it.
For sure. I was drawn to astrology, Western tropical astrology in high school, maybe. But as you're asking this question, I'm thinking back to because I was raised in the Catholic Church in a very strict Roman Catholic Church, reading the Bible and the mythology of those ancient stories um, was always part of my world. And so there were little points throughout life that other cultures were presented to me. I remember I was maybe 8 years old, and my grandmother went to Egypt. This was the mid 90s, and you were allowed to take groups for meditations in the pyramids. And she went on this, I think, month-long journey in Egypt. And she came back and she brought me a few trinkets. Like there was a name with or a shirt with my name on it with the hieroglyphics and little things like that. So at a very young age, world culture kind of became this obsession. And so fast forward to maybe high school, I was very much interested in Western astrology and the sun signs. And I saw myself as a Gemini for a very long time because that would be my tropical calculation of my sun. And I would associate all of these things and compare them to my lived experience. And I just thought it was such a fascinating thing that the stars in the sky that we see at night could have any sort of impact on our tangible physical lives down here on the ground, you know? It just
Big
seems
time
so,
it does.
it seems so, yeah, otherworldly, magical, right?
Yeah.
Um, And then there came a point, as you mentioned, about like being introduced to Eastern philosophy. I remember very clearly reading my first few Alan Watts books. I could not get enough of Taoism specifically at that time. And then I had a major career shift in 2018, and I had time to consider what I actually wanted to do and things to pursue things that I was very interested that, lit my
Yeah.
heart on fire, if you will. And I joined a yoga teacher training, a Hatha yoga studio in South Philadelphia. And the lineage was based in Tantra and the study of the goddesses, really. So there was a lot of archetypal mythology throughout that training as well for me, as in addition to all the embodiment of these postures that we call asana, which is what most people call like going to a yoga class. You're actually doing a series of postures called asanas. And so this really opened a door to me for the Hindu culture specifically. And then, boy, I found Vedic astrology probably from the initial history of the study of yoga, and then you're introduced to the what are the eight limbs of yoga, and with that, this self-study, astrology being one path of self-study, was open to me, and I was like, I love astrology. What is Vedic astrology? What is Jyotish? You know,
Yeah.
and um, to be a Jyoti, an individual who studies the path of the stars, is, to commit to a path of self discovery and illumination, and to maybe, if it's in your dharma, assist others discover their purpose and their path here. And it can be very healing. It has been for me, and I think it will continue to be my entire life. And I also don't think this is the first time that I've done this. As I said, like the theories of karma and dharma are very prominent in Vedic astrology, whereas like in Western astrology or modern science, claims that all of this is an accident, that we crawled out of the sea like some sort of reptilian creatures. And while there is relevance to these theories, and we could align them to some of the mythology as well, I think there's much more going on than that. So
Oh yeah, big time. They would love for us to think that was all there was to it.
it's not just one and done.
Exactly. Exactly. It is so much more interesting and magical, and everything's connected. And I feel like astrology shows us that the more you look into it. And then you get your chart done and you're like, oh my gosh, that resonates. And oh my gosh, that it all makes sense now. And there's no way, there are no accidents, there are no coincidences. And I just love that calling it a sky clock. I know we both enjoy calling it that. I think we got that from Crow Triple Seven, or I don't know, but at least I
Well,
did.
it's a
Yeah,
counting time, that's for sure.
for
And
sure.
I think what you said too is really important, because that little bit of validation or affirmation for why certain things have happened to you in your life, or why you're drawn very clearly to certain subject matter or people or experiences. Um, Affirming and validating that can kind of like give you an ease into your life experience, rather than fighting it or um, cursing it or whatever we do when we struggle with the life that we're given.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It helps. It helps to have some direction. And
Mhm.
especially if that resonates, you know?
Yeah.
You agreed to come on and give us a reading for 2025. We're here in, what is it? It's the end of February. I believe it's the 25th. Yes. Um, so do you have a, I'm just kind of gonna, I feel bad you've been like talking the whole time, but I'm here for you. We're gonna have a conversation. But I'm kind of gonna give you the reins as far as just leading us and doing this reading for us for 2025. What can we expect to see? I've already read some of your notes and it resonates big time. And I have to say, even with some of the stuff we've touched on already on the show with other guests, it's like, it's all coming together, which of course it is because it's a reality and it's, this stuff works. So,
It's
Um,
a web we're all weaving, like we're all
yeah.
adding our unique perspective to what we collectively call reality, but if we're all stemming from one single source, then there's a theme unfolding for sure.
Oh yeah, it's a dance. We're dancing down here. I love it.
I love that we chose this date too, because Jenny and I originally had a different date that we were gonna have this conversation, and now our date is 2225 So there's something about twos and fives happening here, and I think it's appropriate because fives are a great change number. They really shake the foundation of four up before we move into the harmony of six. Five is kind of just like this chaos a little bit unfolding. And I do think that there is some of that happening this year.
Okay, chaos. So should we buckle our seatbelts, Christine?
If you need to,
Okay,
Jenny,
all right.
I'm free
Arms and
here.
legs in the vehicle at all times.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
enjoy the ride, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well,
So,
the major themes, I've kind of pinpointed three ideas that or three transits really that I want to touch on that
yes.
are probably the most prominent throughout the year.
Okay.
And that is the two largest planets to our visible eyes,
Hmm.
um, Saturn and Jupiter, are changing signs. Now, this is important because Saturn only changes signs every 2.5 years. He's the slowest moving visible planet. And when I say visible planet, I mean with our God-given eyes. Of course, there are outer planets we've discovered, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto have validity, but they're not really studied in the ancient texts because we're using, again, the eye of the Veda, our given human eyes.
Okay.
Um, so Saturn is the boundary, the outer border of the sky clock that we talked about.
Hmm.
And Jupiter is the largest body that's visible to us. So these two massive luminaries changing signs, and in the same year is, I think, two very notable points. And we'll extrapolate each of these points further, but I just want to give an overview first. And then the third biggest transit or shift is that the nodes of the moon, and now these are not luminaries. The nodes of the moon are actually shadow points based on a calculation of sun, moon, earth. So these shadow points are what causes the eclipses. So either the moon gets eclipsed or the sun gets eclipsed. And these are considered omens, I mean, in ancient culture.
Hmm.
So very notable times when the eclipses happen. And depending on the axis of signs that they're happening in is going to give us sort of a taste of the theme of the energy unfolding with the what we call eclipse season. So
Okay.
the nodes of the moon shifting, Saturn shifting, Jupiter shifting. Those are the three main points we're going to cover today.
Okay. Let me write this down. Okay.
And then there's kind of on the plane of reality that is our conversation today, there is an umbrella theme as well, like a single overarching um, idea, which is what I'm kind of calling the great perspective shift. But
Yeah.
really, it's a dance of duality. The shadows on Plato's cave that I was alluding to earlier, the dance of light and dark, the Maya that we're all experiencing, the way we perceive reality. Duality is one of the most real things in our realm as a human on Earth, right? Like the symbolism of the rising sun, rising and setting sun every day, the idea of day and night, um, most personally experienced by all of us is the inhalation and the exhalation of our breath, which is happening constantly without our conscious commitment to it. It just is our breath of life.
Yeah.
And so this expansion and contraction that's happening constantly, or this illumination and ignorance that
Yeah.
is happening constantly, is it's very tangible to all of us. We can all relate to it, right? So
Hmm.
um, the 12 houses in astrology. most people know there are 12 houses in astrology from Aries to Pisces, right?
Uh-huh.
But also perceive them as a set of pairs, 6 pairs specifically. So
Okay.
the axes of these opposites, we might consider them opposites, but there's actually a unifying force in all of these opposites. And that's kind of the paradox of life experience is you head to the extreme of one side and you are thrust with equal and opposite force to experience something so contradictory to what you once believed. And I like to visualize the idea of a pendulum swinging.
Yeah.
It's something I refer back to throughout life, but the idea of a pendulum swinging because now, I don't know the calculations and the physics of it, obviously, but
Yeah.
the idea of a pendulum swinging, we can all get behind, right? Because like a weighted ball, for example, sitting in a middle point on a bar on a string is an unmoving, right? But the second you have an idea or a thought or an action, it swings you in a direction, right?
Hmm.
And so the theory of physics would say that with equal and opposite force, that pendulum is going to swing with the exact amount of velocity to the other end of that pole, right?
Yes.
So I notice these themes in lived experience, obviously. And sometimes we use words to like demean the experience. Like we call ourselves hypocrites for changing our minds or opening an idea on something that we are so firmly rooted in. But it is to be human to evolve and shift and illuminate constantly.
Yes.
And so that's why the third point that I'm going to talk about today, or we are talking about today, the nodal shift, Rahu and Ketu, the north node and the south node changing signs, they kind of represent these extremes that we all experience. Now, Rahu, in the mythology, is the head of the dragon. So when you think of the head of anything, you think of the eyes, the nose, the mouth. It's where we hunger for things. We salivate for life to fulfill our desires, right? We see
Hmm.
something, we want to go get it. It's very direct, it's very primal. K2, the tail of the dragon, is the body and it's headless. So it's completely intuitive. It doesn't have any desires. It just has the spiritual receptivity, really, of the emotional body. So these two extremes actually serve a purpose in all of our lives, in our personal charts, because this axis is always moving. It shifts signs every 18 months. And on a collective level, it's affecting all of us because, like, when I talked about the moon being our instrument of perception, our mind determines how we perceive the world. So when we think of the nodes of the moon and the hunger of this dragon, collective humanity is affected by the signs that these nodes are in. So I think that that's super important. And then we also have some more conflict happening this year because Saturn is changing signs while Rahu, the head of the dragon, is changing signs, and they're going in opposite directions. Saturn is coming into the sign of Pisces. Rahu is always moving backward. Rahu and Ketu are always in a reverse um, motion. They are moving to Aquarius and Leo. But there's going to be this moment in on March 29th, depending on the calculation that you use for the node. So some astrologers might use other calculations. I'm using the mean node calculation. Um, on March 29th, Rahu is going to shift. Um, oh, no, no. Saturn is going to move into Pisces on March 29th, the same day as an eclipse. And then in May, it will make its transit back into the sign of Aquarius. So this is important because we have a condensed energy happening in the sign of Pisces. So wherever Pisces is in your personal chart, you can see what area of life might be getting some serious shakeup. And um, this is conflicting energy because, as I said, Rahu is a hungry dragon. He wants to fulfill his desires. And Saturn, being the outermost planet of our visible clock in the sky, is a restricting force. So Saturn sets boundaries, he creates rules, he wants us to fulfill our karma, meaning he wants us to burn away any repercussions for previous actions we may have taken. And so when Rahu, the head of the dragon, wants something, but Saturn is saying, well, we need XYZ to make this happen, and or this has happened previously, so no, we're not going to go this direction. There's a clashing with the energy. Rahu is expansive, and
Hmm.
Saturn is trying to give us boundaries, restricting, to say the least.
Okay.
Um,
So that's going to start March 29th
hmm.
or
Yeah.
okay.
So one thing with the nodes I just want to say loosely is that because they are shadow points in the sky, they're not actual luminaries like Sun, Moon, Mars, Venus. Um, their energy can take effect weeks or months before any actual transit is, there's no hard line when you're dealing with a shadow, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So the energy is happening now. You know what I mean? Like we are already experiencing a culmination of Rahu in the sign of Pisces. And Saturn coming into the sign of Pisces will be a solid movement on March 29th. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we can expect to see wanting to expand but not. Um, so
Hmm.
can I just go through your notes here? The Rahu Saturn conjunction, right?
Oh, fun. Okay, yeah.
Oh wait.
So
What were we talking about here? Hang on.
I'm not going by any
Oh. Oh,
specific.
okay. Okay. I'm like a student like taking notes over here. Okay.
Were you a school teacher in a past life? I'm pretty sure you
I
were.
was, but I realized it was all a lie and I left. So,
Oh my God. So cute. Um, okay, yeah. So mundane predictions, really,
okay.
with um, Rahu and Saturn coming together because Saturn gives us new systems and structures in place, and Rahu is a um, the word I want to use is evading me, of course. Rahu is an outlier of society. He comes in with new ideas that aren't readily accepted easily. So, what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say is huge technical advancements. On a mundane level, again, when we see Rahu and Saturn together, even though the energy is seemingly conflicting, it's going to produce something, right? Something tangible because Saturn is the brass tacks of life. And
Yeah.
so when Rahu comes in with new innovations, Saturn is going to be hard pressed not to set limits and boundaries on it, but also make it a reality. Like shadows don't necessarily create tangible items, but Saturn certainly does. So when these two forces come together, we're given um, very big shifts in like industrial fields and launching new careers. So Saturn
Yeah.
rules our karma, but what that means in a modern age is like our career and or our reputation, how we show up in the world. So
Hmm.
we might see a lot of innovation when it comes to people shifting their careers, either to move online, which I mean, we've been seeing considerably since 2020, obviously, but we're
Yes.
going to be seeing another huge wave of that happening. A lot of people were asked to come back into offices and things like that in 22, 2023, things like that. But I think companies are really going to be seeing that it's a huge loss to be maintaining brick and mortar. So more companies are going to be having another wave of moving employees online and or I don't love saying it, but and or replacing human manpower with machines, right?
Hmm.
So because Rahu is a representation of technological advancements and new innovations, and Saturn is the general workforce, the common man, um, there's going to be opportunities for mass implementation, which could also mean mass job loss, or people relocating to foreign countries because Pisces represents the ocean and the dissolution of boundaries.
Hmm.
So that could mean moving to other countries for work, specifically people moving their whole families, their whole lives across the seas. Um, and Saturn too, because he's like the tangible earth realm, he rules things that are he represents things that are underground, like oil drilling and precious metals and stones and things like that. So anything that we dig up under the earth is also represented here. So there might also be a desire or a rise in oil drilling and precious metal sourcing and offshore drilling, especially because, again, Pisces is the ocean.
Hmm.
Um, and with these tech advancements, especially when we talk about AI filling a lot of manual positions in the coming years, um, humans are left with a lot of time on their hands. And I say this loosely because there are so many distractions for all of us, right? Like this evolution of technology since the early 2000s has, I mean, it's changed all of our lives considerably. I think you and I, Jenny, born in the late 80s,
Hmm.
were probably the last generation to really play outside. I mean, even
Yeah.
my younger sibling who was born in the early 90s,
Hmm.
he was, on Nintendo 64. I mean, he played outside too, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but I just think that like the separation from the earth, especially as a young human,
Yeah.
isn't really prevalent.
No, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, and it's a shame we need to get back to that, I think. I don't know if I told you this. I was talking to a woman at Christmas time who teaches 5-year-olds. She's been doing it for 20 years, and I applauded her, actually hugged her, because she's been given computers to begin to teach and assimilate 5-year-olds with AI. And she said these computers she's been given to do this are collecting dust in the corner of her classroom. And I applauded her for that and I thanked her. And she's like, yeah, I've been there 20 years and I just close my door, they leave me alone, and I just keep doing what I've been doing. But it is
Right.
a shame that she has noticed, kind of like you touched on, that they can't, the kids aren't interested in playing with blocks or like using their imaginations as much, which we really need to get back to that. That's because that's our magic. And like I always say, so yeah, I do not like AI. I I know a lot of people do, but um, yeah, it just makes me nervous when it just feels like giving away responsibility to me. And I feel like if you give away responsibility, you're kind of giving away being free too, and we're not cultivating our creativity and our imagination when we give away our power to the machines, I feel. But I don't know, we'll see.
That's a big word. That's a big word that you're using, even though a seemingly simple word, but creativity, um, to me means being created in the image of God. If God is a single source creative energy, then if we are not expressing creatively, then we're not doing what we were created for. Like
Yeah.
we were created in the image of God. God creates, we create. And so that's why the social media and consumption of content as we make content is so dangerous because it puts you in this lethargic state of consume, consume, consume. Again, this is very Rahu energy. I want what's new and exciting. I need that dopamine hit while I'm here on Earth
Hmm.
constantly. And then your brain becomes addicted to that, and then you're not satisfied with your tangible life. And I think what you're bringing up about using the tools that God gave you, your hands, and digging in the soil and creating, and even perfecting some sort of artistry. Where has that gone? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
where are all the woodworkers and carvers and the beautiful ancient buildings that we used to construct? If anything affirms being in a dark age, it is the lack of architecture that we
Yeah.
currently see, you know?
The it's just black boxes being built everywhere.
Right, right, you're right.
Yeah, and they have
Saturn's,
no soul at all. Nothing.
No.
Yeah.
But I think you're onto something too with how many people feel, especially those of us willing to take a look at the big picture of what humanity is going through right now.
Yeah.
This implementation of technology, it incites a lot of fear. Like
Yeah.
there is plenty of reason to be scared about how much more technology can and will infiltrate our lives because we can see as a generation that was not born with technology, we saw it happen when we were, 9, 10 years old
Yeah.
to be in your home at least. I think I had AOL dial-up and a computer in our kitchen when maybe I was 10.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not going to age myself with a date. But anyway, so the idea of where technology could go and how much more it could infiltrate our daily lives is it incites a lot of fear in myself as well. Like
Yeah.
and innately our human emotional physical bodies want to be connected to the earth and the natural rhythms and cycles of
Mm-hmm.
the earth. So this technology is threatening, and that's where all the fear is stemming from. But that said, because we're in the theme of looking at everything from both sides, or at least two sides
Mm-hmm.
today with our duality subject matter, is that there has to be a way for us to implement and evolve because technology is a human creation as well too. Like to label it just bad because
Mm-hmm.
we've had some bad experiences with it or the way that it's changed our lives or the people that we love doesn't mean that inherently it's bad. We are the ones assigning meaning to it, and we are the ones deciding how often to engage with it. So,
Yeah.
Saturn coming in your own personal chart and creating these boundaries and these daily routines that enable you to um, live your best life with technology being around is probably the best way to approach it. It's not like we're gonna go run back to the cave or crawl inside our mom's womb. We are here, and this is what is
Yeah.
being created during our lifetime. So
Yeah.
we really we're being called to participate with it. Why? I don't know, but we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As long as, yeah, we just can't let them merge us with it, lose ourselves.
Again,
But
everything is a choice.
yes,
But
that's true. Um, Now you also said that on the other end of this, that there could be sparking spiritual and philosophical pursuits that people, that may, artists and the poets and the dreamers are going to be motivated to come out during
yes,
this
so
time.
this is an excellent catalyst on the point about humans having more time because of technological advancements and AI implementation, where machines and robots can be doing mundane jobs that don't require your intellect or your creativity, right? Why are humans taking packages from A to B location? You know what I mean? Like it's a waste of human expression and talent, your God-given creativity. So when humans have more time on our hands, what you do with it is, of course, up to you, but um, it will spark new ways of seeing the world or experiencing the world if you don't have to do mundane tasks. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of us are inspired when we vacuum our house. I get some of my best ideas when I'm cleaning, that's for sure. So I'm not going to be having a robot roaming around my floor, but many
Yeah.
people need time to allocate to other pursuits and projects, especially if they know their purpose, especially if they have a family or a community that they support, right? We could all use more time. And
Mm-hmm.
Saturn's movement into Pisces is kind of lifting some of those boundaries on our time. Saturn has been in the two signs that he rules, which is Capricorn and Aquarius, for the last 5 years. So, right before 2020 was announced, meaning the effery that was 2020, um, right
Yeah.
before that was announced, Saturn and Jupiter had a mass conjunction in the sign of Sagittarius. And that was a collision of beliefs for all of us, to say the least, right? We all
Yeah.
felt very strongly about what was happening on the planet, and we were willing to fight in, parking lots about it.
Yeah.
And so that collision of beliefs then led to the motion of Saturn and Jupiter progressing through the zodiac. And Saturn has spent the last 5 years in signs that it rules, Capricorn and Aquarius. And so its expression of energy, I'm so excited. Its expression of energy really actually solidified and created more boundaries. Like rules that we created and the ways that we treated each other because of what happened in 2020. We all kind
Yeah.
of reassessed our personal boundaries and who we engage with on a social or political level. Like things got very, line in the sand for the
Oh
last
yeah.
5 years.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now Saturn's going to move into the sign of Pisces, and Pisces being the 12th sign of the zodiac, it is the culmination of the zodiac, right? It is the final leg of the journey. And it's as vast as the ocean, the Milky Ocean of the cosmos, by that I mean.
Yeah.
So it represents things like spiritual philosophy. And in the Hindu culture, it's called moksha, which is ultimate enlightenment, merging your consciousness back with God. And so when Saturn comes here, people, the collective on one level is going to be dissolving some of the boundaries that they've put up around themselves, some of the walls that they've built, some of the beliefs that maybe they took on for a period of time
Mm-hmm.
because of social political matters that have unfolded. And so what hopeful to see, for lack of a better word, is kind of like a reassessment of the karmas you may have accumulated over the last 5 years. How did you treat your loved ones based on beliefs? What beliefs? Whose beliefs? You know
Mm.
what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, but there is going to be this intense yearning for something otherworldly. How do I bring these spiritual ideas, um, this vast expanse of the cosmos? How do I make that real in my daily life? What can I implement? So I think we're going to see like an uptick in spiritual seeking, new religious movements. Of course, you're
Yes.
going to see things with the pendulum swinging very wide. You're going to see things like religious extremism or even cults, which, I mean, you could say over the last 5 years, we've seen
Oh God.
cult-ish behavior
Yeah.
from all
Yes.
sides.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
No, yeah.
also things like because Pisces is dissolving borders and boundaries, we can also see things like escapism and depression and isolation. And I mean, these things may be even provoked by the career loss or sudden mass layoffs or having to move to another country or adapt another culture. That can be super isolating.
Yeah. And then also
Um,
people potentially dropping addictions or getting control over their addictions,
yes.
right?
Absolutely,
Yeah, so
absolutely.
that's
I'm
good.
so glad you brought that up. That because that is the other end of the spectrum of that axis and duality, right? Because Virgo is on the opposite end of Pisces or the balancing end of Pisces. Virgo is very regimented, and Virgo wants its ultimate goal is to keep the health of your mind and body. So that means addressing your daily routines, checking up in any way that you do that, assessing your health, whether with a practitioner or, you know, Ayurveda or Chinese medicine, whatever your practice is, assessing the health of your body, even if that's intuitively, finding some restraint and control over your habits, because your habits shape your world. Slow and steady over time, every decision you make every day, if you do the same thing every day, that is becoming a personality that you assign yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but really, truly knowing, embodying, understanding the value of self introspection,
Hmm.
um, coming into wholeness, whatever that means to you. But I think that there's going to be a lot of shifts in perspective this year that open our eyes a little wider, to the reality that we're creating collectively.
It sounds really healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm glad to hear that. And then you said, so you said the Lord of Time is entering the house of timelessness.
Mm.
Karmic dreams, redirection, re-envisioning the workforce, working beyond the system of 9 to 5. I think we already touched on that. Yeah.
Well,
The,
just to that point that you're bringing up, because Saturn is the Lord of karma and our work here in this realm, work being the specific word, um, in the modern age, the 9 to 5 system that we've put in place since when the Industrial Revolution is my best guess, um,
yeah.
is 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 being reimagined now. If we're dissolving the way that we perceive time and utilize time in the sign of Pisces, then we're going to, start to dream up new ways that our lives and our creative force could be best utilized for humanity, and um
Yeah.
shoot. Oh, the whole conversation that has been happening the last few years, even about what do we do when we set the clocks forward and
Oh, daylight
backwards?
savings time.
Daylight savings. We're even talking about dissolving that, right? Like that
Yeah.
was created for more hours of daylight for people to work in industrial, factories, manufacturing.
Yeah.
Uh,
It really messes up people's bodies. I mean,
I'll
yeah.
tell you, Arizona doesn't even participate, but I need so much more sleep in the winter time. I'll do this thing where I beat myself up like January, February, and I'm like, why am I so blah blah blah? Why can't I stick to my routine? But I'm a Virgo moon. But then the clocks on the East Coast and West Coast will change and we get more daylight hours. And then by April, I'm like, oh, everything's great. It's
Well,
just sunshine. It's literally vitamin D.
yeah. Well, we're supposed to be hibernating in the winter, and then we get all thrown off with the holidays, and it's like you're nonstop stressed out, running here and there. We're supposed to be resting. But anyway, we all know it's all done on purpose to keep us off kilter and disconnected.
Well, we're not meant to function like it's summer all 4 seasons of the year. And I think that's what
Yeah.
we're doing. Like with the mention of fulfilling our desires, as that's what Rahu does,
Hmm.
it expects us to perform in a way that we were not meant to perform. And being in a human body is so humbling. Like when you realize that you don't have the capacity to output um in December the way that you do in June, it's very obvious. And
Yeah.
and and to live your life a bit, maybe paganistic, um, seems to be for the health of the earth and your physical body, which is made up of the clay of the earth. Um,
Yeah.
Mother Earth is not around.
No. No, definitely not. And she's making moves too, I feel like,
Yeah.
you know. Um, so what else can we expect to see? Let's see.
There was one
Yeah.
point I wanted to make about the workforce changing because with that, we can also imagine that the ways that if the systems and structures that we have in place for how we work and interact in society are shifting and changing, then there is going to be a lot to go along with that. Like people who work in maybe unions or government jobs, military, people who have pensions and maybe stock investments with huge companies, corporations, right? Because Pisces represents very large, like global corporations. And with Saturn coming in and making solidified changes, and Pisces being this imaginal dreamlike state where we can dream up a new reality and Saturn can put it into place for us, then things like Social Security, pension plans, all of these things might have some massive changes. And already we're seeing somebody was had showed me earlier something like Trump renamed allegedly the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Don't get me started, but these sorts of things that we once thought weren't possible. I mean, it's all a clown show. We know that, but like
Yes. Yeah.
things that we thought would be around forever. This is
Mm-hmm.
reliable source of income, like Social Security or my pension.
Uh-huh.
Even people making political decisions um, based on what happened with CV-19, like they were making health decisions because they didn't want to lose their pension for their job that they had invested in for 20, 30, 40 years. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
to make that very personal decision and to take risks like that just based on the idea that you're getting this cash out prize at the end of the road,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think there's something bubbling up there, if that makes sense. What do
Yeah.
you feel intuitively?
I feel intuitively that the money's not even going to be there.
Mm,
I think something's going to happen with it. And that's what I felt, you know, I when I left my job over the mandates, I didn't want to take the needlecraft as I call it. And yeah, I took out my 401k and I used that as a life raft to keep my house, keep my car, you know, while all that madness was happening with the mandates. And it's gone now. Um, and I'm fine with that because I know I'll be taken care of. And I kind of felt intuitively it's not going to be there anyway when I go to take it. Or if I stay and which there was no way I was taking the needlecraft, but I probably won't be here if I stay and take the needlecraft for the stupid, you know, retirement money.
it's a
But
big
yeah,
bet. It was a big bet that a lot of people took. You
yeah,
know, I have
unfortunately.
friends who retired from law enforcement and military
Hmm.
because they were not going to participate. And this is
Yeah.
the thing about Saturn moving through these Jupiterian signs. As I said, this conjunction that happened in 2019 with
Hmm.
Saturn and Jupiter in the sign of Sagittarius, which represents like police, or I'm sorry, the justice system and our
Hmm.
belief systems, even, religion, which is
Hmm.
why everyone treated this news as their new belief system, because it was in this extreme sign of Sagittarius that represents our core beliefs that we treat like an identity.
Hmm.
That was shaping up for a lot of people. And now Saturn is moving into another Jupiterian sign, but one that dissolves, one that really asks us to let go and surrender certain beliefs that we've maybe accumulated over the last 5 years.
That's very interesting.
Mhm.
So do you think some truths are going to come out? I mean, about what went down these past 5 years?
Mhm. Well, it all depends on the eyes of perception that are in your
Hmm.
head. And truth, I don't, I don't assign truth and untruth in my life too much. I mean, there are things that resonate as truth for me.
Hmm.
I hear them and I'm like, yeah, that works. In my lived experience, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But since we're on the theme of duality today, it really begs the question of someone else's perception and lived experience in complete contrast with our lived experience. Just because
Hmm.
I don't think that a remedy um, would heal me doesn't mean that it wouldn't work for another person. And like I said, when we talked about the difference between Vedic astrology and Western astrology
Hmm.
calculations, the faith behind the system is actually what the life force is. It's actually the creative essence that lives through you as a vessel for divine will. Like you're wearing, you have all these layers of filter, essentially, that we call our personality based on how we grew up, the people that are around us, the systems and structures that were in place when we were born and continue to evolve and change. And so that shapes our perspective. So when you ask a question that is very large, if truth is coming, whose truth? You know, it's
Yeah. Well, I mean the propaganda that was pushed, I suppose, is what I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
I don't think the propaganda machine is ever supposed to stop. And I don't
Yeah.
think it can. I think that's why propaganda, as we call it, or information with this wave of technology that we're living in our 2025 modern age, it can't stop. It's just constant. And
Yeah.
that's Rahu, the dragon. The
Yeah.
dragon is not stopping, and it's not going to turn around to see if what happened was right or wrong. There's
Yeah.
no need to assign right or wrong. It all just is this wheel of karma constantly unfolding, and we're along
Hmm.
for the ride. And
Yeah.
how you navigate that information is what you can say about yourself, right? How you
Hmm.
respond, how you react, the action that you take, that is the karma.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So where else are we going with this?
Is that enough? It's like such big subject matter. Okay, let's
Yeah. So you
recoup back to the three main points. So what's exciting about Saturn and Rahu coming together is, just to recap, is
okay.
these new technological advancements, new desires,
Yes.
new ways of perceiving the world, all kind of drawn in by Rahu's culmination in the sign of Pisces. Saturn now coming into the sign of Pisces as of March 29th is going to be solidifying these new ideas, right? It's going to give us a way to implement some of these changes on a really large scale in society, which is really exciting.
Hmm.
Um, Now, because Rahu and Saturn, or I'm sorry, Rahu and Ketu are, as I said, the head and the tail of the dragon, they're always in a particular axis. So, opposite to Pisces is the sign of Virgo. And when Ketu, the body, the spiritual, emotional realm, is in the sign of Virgo, we're kind of dissolving our anxieties and eccentricities. Because, like, Virgo's very regimented. It's an earth sign that's very calculative.
Hmm.
It represents things like accounting and financial transactions, and even um, the way we service. So, like, waiters, nurses, people in society that offer a tangible service to take care of our physical needs, really, like eating and, you know, receiving some sort of medicine in a hospital. So when K2's there, we're also kind of dissolving some of the practices that we've put into place, since we're on the subject matter medically, like things, the way we approach our health. A lot of people are reassessing that now. And I think that goes to the theme of what we've talked about with the last 5 years, people reassessing their philosophy on, one, the way their beliefs were challenged, two, how they responded, and how they now take care of their bodies moving forward. These things are all up on the table for discussion right now.
Yeah.
And these nodes will shift in May. They're going to move to the axis of Leo and Aquarius, which have very different themes.
Okay.
But I think for the first half of the year, we're going to continue to see the culmination of this Pisces and Virgo axis, where it's um, people are getting much more serious about taking their health and their daily routines into their own hands, their philosophy of the world. How do I move and navigate that's in alignment with what I truly believe? What is my truth, and how do I actually make decisions every single day to represent that and stay in alignment with it?
Awesome. Good.
Yeah.
We need to do that. So less relying on other people, more relying on ourselves, taking responsibility. It sounds to me like in general, that's good because that needs to start happening.
Hmm.
Getting more responsible. Okay, and then was the next. So that is from that starts in May, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the nodes are going to shift in May, and
Okay.
so is Jupiter.
Okay.
So Rahu and Ketu, the head and the tail of the dragon, again, they're always one. on one axis together. So they're moving in a pair of opposites. As we've
Okay.
discussed, the first half of the year, they're going to be in Pisces and Virgo. It's a total of an 18-month process that they're in a particular axis. And
Okay.
so culmination will be in May 2025. And then they're going to shift for 18 months. They're going to be in the
Okay.
signs of Leo and Aquarius.
Okay.
And one thing that's interesting about that is things are going to become more political than they even have been over the last 5 years. And that is because of things that we're discussing, right? Like if people start really opening up their minds and hearts to new ideas and philosophies about navigating the world because of the Pisces Virgo axis, then when the nodes shift into Aquarius and Leo, we actually take that further out into the world, not just like our personal experience, but a social, cultural experience. Aquarius represents like a human, but on the scale of humans in mass, large groups, social organizations. So when Rahu the dragon comes there, there's going to be a big desire to cohort with people of like mind, which we're already doing, which is why I said that the shadow doesn't have an exact date that it's shifting signs. You know what I mean? You can't really
Yes.
pinpoint on this day, the shadow is going to appear. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we're already really kind of seeing that. And because Saturn's culminating in the sign of Aquarius, people implementing new ways of being and new friend groups over like a 30-year cycle, because Saturn takes 30 years to come back to a sign. Um, we're finding new friends for life, if you will, or new organizations that we support. Maybe new political groups. Maybe another fun idea would be because Rahu has new innovative desires and Aquarius is like large groups and political parties, it's quite possible that we might even innovate the way that we vote. And that would be super cool because the corruption within a two-party system doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't evolve us. We're kind of in this stronghold of most people vote the lesser of two evils. They don't even actually make an informed and heartfelt decision to support a candidate. They make a decision based out of fear because they don't want XYZ to be in the place. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
this is not a it's not an empowered process. It doesn't empower the individual, it doesn't empower the collective. It's very stunting and outdated.
Yeah.
So perhaps we will see some innovations when it comes to collective efforts.
Okay. Awesome.
And the other end of that axis is K2 in the sign of Leo. And Leo represents many things, but since we're on the theme of like the political social stage, Leo represents the king. Leo represents the hierarchies. And that is, the people who have a voice and make decisions that affect all of us. Now we're talking about this headless shadow figure called Ketu who really wants to spiritualize anything. It wants to purge desires, which is the opposite of what Rahu wants. Rahu wants to fulfill all the desires and has no stomach, so it doesn't even know that it's full. You know what I mean? Like it's just
Yeah.
never ending. I'm gonna
Yeah.
eat. Oh my God. I'm thinking of that what was that movie? Matilda, when that kid was
Oh.
forced to eat chocolate
Oh God.
cake. He was
Yeah.
like so sick.
Oh my God. That scene made me so
Oh,
sick.
I know, it's such a terrible image, but it
Yeah.
really does encompass the human affliction of trying to fulfill your desires.
Yeah.
Um, but when we think of K2 kind of dissolving that hunger and spiritualizing the king or the hierarchy, um, which goes in hand with Rahu's placement in Aquarius, reinventing or revolutionizing social structures, then we see K2 over here purging old hierarchies and or spiritualizing them and or fulfilling karmic justice. Because I mean, That's really what K2 represents. I think this is really, really it was bound to happen. Like it's been on it's like something that's been on the tip of your tongue that you wanted to say for a year and a half, 2 years, 5 years, and we're all now
Yes.
maybe. I mean, it also symbolically could represent a headless king. Just saying,
Okay. So
and
you
I should have gone back to see
didn't
what
you
was
say
happening
that
with
the alignment
the.
that's coming is conducive with what happened to JFK, or am I imagining that?
No, but there was something. I forget. Did I put it in the
Because I remember we
notes?
talked and you said either figuratively or literally losing their head.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it was Saturn in Pisces in the 60s. I'm
Okay.
gonna have to go back. But yes, but excellent symbolism is a
Okay.
headless, right? And
Okay.
that's what we're discussing here. When K2, the headless body of the dragon, moves through
Mm-hmm.
the sign of Leo, there is a symbolism, a shadow crossing over the king for him to lose his
Okay.
head.
Okay.
Um, Now that can happen in many ways. We're also talking about this philosophically, where um, a king defames himself, has some sort of scandal, and or no longer participates, like renaming the Gulf of America,
Yeah.
which is embarrassing, but
Yeah.
doesn't need to represent us individually. It's all just a collective happening.
Yeah.
But it is a statement that the old way of doing something is no longer. You know what I mean?
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Changes are coming for sure. Just have to make sure it's more positive.
Non-stopping.
Okay, so let's keep it moving along. We're at an hour now.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we can culminate with our third biggest point if you would like.
Yes. Or is there more to say about the second point? I'm
Well, it's that Saturn in Pisces is it's a culminative energy because it's the last sign of the zodiac, and it takes time. Literally, he is the Lord of time because he is the outer border of our sky clock.
mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think we can fully grasp the dissolution of systems and structures that we've had in place for our entire lives, but also I'm talking like hundreds of years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, Saturn is also an indication of grief and chronic illness. He represents the houses that are very difficult houses, the sixth, eighth, and the 12th, where we deal with debts and illness and karma and sudden events. And so it's quite possible that there is too an uptick in hospitalizations, or especially when Rahu and Saturn meet in the same sign, which
Mm-hmm.
will, be at the end of March through mid-April. They're really in a tight conjunction there in the sign of Pisces. And so those who, just to make a reference to the duality of the experience unfolding here,
Yeah.
those who rely heavy on materialism are going to experience a very large pendulum swing in surrender. And those who live in the dream realm and don't really interact in any sort of tangible, creative way with the physical realm, maybe they consume too much social media or don't have any purpose, and are uninspired, they're going to be hit with a materialistic bill that forces them to get up and take action. So there is kind of this, Pisces represents the two fish swimming in opposite directions
Yeah.
symbolically. So this is kind of what I meant about like the great perspective shift. Those who are grasping really hard are going to be asked to let go. Those who refuse to grasp are going to be asked to grasp, if that makes
It
sense.
makes
And I
perfect
think that's kind
sense.
of
Yeah.
biggest overarching, is kind of that pendulum swing coming into the Buddha's middle way for you, right? Whatever spectrum you're on of extremism, a way of living, you're going to be asked to look at the other way of living and what that means for you. Could
Awesome.
be in the form of a relationship, could be in the form of a job, could be in the form of the death of somebody close to you. It could be any sort of event in life that is core shaking these thresholds of experience that we all walk through as humans. Um, but it's big. It's really big for all of us. And we don't know what's going to come up. It's Pisces. It's the vastness of the ocean. Isn't there some sort of statistic that like we've only explored 2% of the world's oceans or something
Oh
along those
yeah.
lines?
Oh yeah.
Like we
We're
have no
clueless.
idea
Yeah.
no idea what was
Yeah.
down there. And even the symbolism of the gods and the demons churning the Milky Ocean, which is the creation of Rahu and Ketu, by the way. Vishnu beheaded the demon, which is why he's in two pieces. But the reason that that happened is because the gods and the demons needed each other to have that tension of opposites and polarity in order to churn the Milky Ocean. And all of these magical gifts came up, but one of which was the Amrit, which made the gods live forever. What's the word I'm looking? Immortality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Rahu and Ketu got a taste of it before Vishnu chopped them in two. So that's why we have these eclipses happening. And the eclipses eclipse our minds. So when we have Saturn, Rahu, the eclipse season, and this culminative energy of we don't know what's at the bottom of this ocean or what's going to come out when we churn it. Really,
Yeah.
anything is possible, but it is indeed going to um, be meaningful for all of us in a very big way.
Okay. Well, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And that's happening this spring.
That is happening this spring. We have
Okay.
as I said, March 29th, Saturn moving into Pisces. Then we have the full moon lunar eclipse, which is 2 weeks before that, the 13th of March, and the 29th of March, when Saturn moves into the sign of Pisces, same day, we have the new moon solar eclipse. So I think that the March 13th lunar eclipse is going to be a glimpse of that Aquarius Leo energy that I was talking about. You know, the
Uh-huh.
world stage, the king, the revolutionizing of old hierarchies. We're going to see some of that on March 13th,
Okay.
glimmers. And then on the 29th, when Saturn shifts and we have the solar eclipse, all of that's happening in Pisces. Meanwhile, I mean, we're not even talking about the other luminaries. Mercury and Venus are also both going to retrograde in the sign of Pisces. There's going to be a collection of planets and energies in the sign of Pisces with that lunar eclipse, or excuse me, solar eclipse. So really from mid-March through mid-May is going to be a high intensity time where anything is
Wow.
possible, re-envisioning your life in some sort of way, meeting those challenges and surrendering to the way that you think that you would normally perceive this. Maybe asking some questions of, what does this want me to know? How can this open my mind and my heart to receive new perspective? How can it widen my scope and my lens instead of having this narrowed tunnel vision on reality?
Okay. Good. Ooh, I wonder what's going to happen to me. I don't know.
Oh, my little Pisces friend.
Oh.
It's funny because you and I are going through the nodal, what would be called the nodal return, because we both have Rahu and Ketu in the signs of Pisces and Virgo. So yeah, big shifts, you
Yeah.
know, if you're going through a nodal return or you have any major planets, especially your moon. I think it's most important, again, with Vedic astrology to look at your moon placement because that's how you're emotionally receiving and perceiving the world. So if you have your moon in any of the dual signs, Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, Gemini, you are going to be most heartfelt about this spring. And the fixed signs, Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus are going to be receiving that shakeup of Rahu and Ketu switching signs in May. So this is kind of as to summarize our entire talk today.
Yeah.
Um, this is the real experience of the initial duality that I was talking about because the mutable signs are just that. They're mutable, they're very changeable. Like I said, Pisces is the fish moving in two directions, Gemini is the twins. So there's a dualistic experience happening here. They're able to more easily shift and change their lives or move homes or hold two opposing ideas at once. They are receiving a lot of aspect from Saturn, and Saturn is the solidifier, right? So those who maybe don't grasp too tightly, they're going to have to grasp a little tighter with Saturn making these aspects on the mutable signs. And then conversely, the fixed signs, because they're getting the innovative energy of Rahu and Ketu, they normally hold on really tight. Fixed sign energy, especially the signs of Scorpio and Aquarius, are very karmic according to the Vedic astrology. So wherever those signs land in your house is, or in your astrology chart, are kind of like where you have this fixed energy. This karma to fulfill with certain people, places, events. But so when the innovative energy of Rahu and Ketu come into the fixed signs, these people who normally grasp life really tightly and
Mm-hmm.
tend to, repeat the same themes throughout their entire lives or very long periods of time, these are the people being asked to surrender. So again, look at your moon sign. Are you a mutable
Okay.
sign? Are you a fixed sign? And and then you'll know maybe I'm a little rigid, or maybe I don't have enough boundaries with life and experience.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very helpful and interesting. Is there any other, are we, anything else going on for the rest of the year you want to mention or?
Well, all of the major movements are happening in the spring, like we talked about,
Okay.
from March to May, as far as Saturn and the nodes. The third point that we didn't touch on too much, but is more of a benefic energy, meaning fruitful and pleasant and expansive. The inhalation to Saturn's exhalation is Jupiter, and Jupiter is the life force, the animating body. um, so he's doing something interesting this year, which is why he was my third point, just quickly,
Yeah.
is
Let's talk
that,
about it. No, take your time. Let's touch on the third point.
okay,
Okay.
Jupiter is doing a very fast transit, which normally he moves signs for 12 months. So it takes 12 years for Jupiter to make a full cycle around the 12 zodiac signs. Um, because of a retrograde, he just had a retrograde in the sign of Taurus, which again, kind of expanding and loosening up and vivifying a fixed sign, which has been great for Taurus and Scorpio, although maybe somewhat painful for fixed signs. Um, Jupiter is going to move in May as well. So that's why I'm saying all the major movements and points that we're talking about today are happening between March and May. And then it's going to be a processing of all the
Mm,
change that has been
yeah.
implemented, you know?
Sounds like that's going
Um,
to be necessary. Yeah.
yeah, so Jupiter will move into the sign of Gemini, a mutable sign. And this is this is again another note to holding perspective and gleaning wisdom from opposing forces because Gemini is the twins represented by Mercury, Hermes. Hermes is able to travel between the heavens and the demonic realm and carry messages neutrally, right? We're not
Mm.
assigning meaning with Mercury. We are giving the facts of the situation. We're not attaching a belief to it, which would be more of Jupiter energy. So again, we have this conflict a bit coming in, or this union of opposites where Jupiter is belief, expanding our knowledge on a particular subject matter, and Mercury is like these quick transactions that are somewhat meaningless, right? Like when you go transact at a bank or a stock exchange or whatever. I guess if you're good at it, you're not emotionally attached to the outcome. So
Yeah.
it's just these meaningless transactions of mundane reality. But when Jupiter comes here, we're going to be assigning meaning to them, right? So there's this, the mental realm will kind of be asked to broaden and expand, um, which I think goes hand in hand with the Saturn and Pisces energy. So
Mm.
again, the mutable signs are really being asked to kind of challenge belief systems and take new ideas into account, hold opposing beliefs in both hands. Um, and then it'll be really great for especially Sagittarius because Saturn is going to be making his 10th aspect and Jupiter will be making a 7th aspect. So there really is, for Sagittarius moon, a huge call to implement and balance their lives in a very real and life-shifting way. But again, this is happening for all of us. So where does Sagittarius land in your chart, for example? And how are you going to be receiving simultaneous this expansive Jupiter energy, but also restricting, regimenting Saturn energy? Um, and then Jupiter is going to like speed because of this recent retrograde period. Jupiter is going to speed through the sign of Gemini, which is just so fitting because Mercury is this like quick paced, like, let's get this done energy. And so he's going to make a quick little transit into his exaltation sign, which is the sign of Cancer, where Jupiter is at its top, because the mother is the first teacher and Jupiter is the teacher and Cancer is the mother. Our mother is our first experience with how do we function in this realm as a
Yeah.
human,
Yeah.
who do we learn from her facial expressions and we regulate with her nervous system. You can even say, the wisdom of Mother Earth is also being, highlighted now, but he's going to make a quick transit into Cancer um, in October, November, and the first week of December, and then retrograde back in to finish the job in Gemini. So we're going to get this little glimmer of a Jupiter exaltation, which is going to be really great for philosophical pursuits, for probably the real estate market, for anything that brings us comforts as humans. So maybe even like food industry, dairy, especially because Cancer, the mother, the udder, the cow. Um, and then retrograde back into Gemini for the remainder of the year and the first half of 2026. So, new ideas really coming into awareness. And then how do we make them tangible with Saturn's transit? So, I just think that this entire year is an invitation to see things in a new light and or to take in more light and to refine the sources from which you receive light. Um, yeah, that's how I feel.
That's beautiful. And that resonates very much.
Oh,
I feel
good.
that. Yeah. And that needs to happen. It's time.
Yeah.
Start doing things differently. Yeah. With our new friends.
With our new friends, our new
Yeah.
communities.
Yeah.
It'd be so wild if there was like new political parties. I mean, like, I don't know, but like, you
Yeah,
know
me
what I mean?
neither. It's all, yeah. It'd be cool to watch, to observe.
Right.
Not that I'd
Just like
participate, but yeah,
on the world stage to see these
on the world
implement.
stage.
Oh, actually, while we're on the subject matter, I did want to quickly point out that
Yeah.
I was looking at the last time that the nodes shifted because, for us, I think we were graduating. Well, everybody's always graduating high school when they have their first nodal return because the nodes to have an 18-month transit in a particular axis. So it takes 18 years to move around the 12 zodiac signs. So you have your nodal return when you're 18, 36, 45, so on. So I went back, no, 45 would be the opposition. Ugh, get it together, Christine, 54.
I don't know
So
how you do any of this. I'm just sitting here like, I don't know what's happening. Okay.
I started by saying that I studied my Western chart and I was a Gemini. I like my mind, ugh, exhausting.
Okay, so
Um,
continue. Sorry.
so I went back to look
Hmm.
when the nodes shifted last time from the signs of Pisces and Virgo to the axis of Leo and Aquarius, right? And I was maybe this is when we were talking offline about JFK losing his head and how that related. But the most recent shift of this energy, now granted, the dispositors, meaning Jupiter, was in a different sign when this last happened, 2005, 6, 7.
Hmm.
But suffice to say, the nodes shifted from Pisces, Virgo to Aquarius, Leo. And the things that happened were interesting to me because we've been talking about all the tech advancements, AI implementation, the way technology has become something we all live with day to day. It's part of our daily experience, right? So, the last time the nodal shift happened, the iPhone was released in 2007. Tesla's Roadster, the first one, was delivered to Elon Musk in 2008. YouTube was purchased by Google in late 2006. Facebook went global in 2007. And IBM was testing its artificial intelligence system called Watson in 2007. So these are all events that changed our lives forever. And and took these seemingly small companies worldwide, and this is the same sort of manifestation of tech advancements that happened in the last 18-year cycle. So I think that it's important to note, like, imagine if you would have purchased Tesla, YouTube, and Facebook stock in 2006, where you would be
Yeah.
right now. I mean, like, I just think that these are notable events, and
Yeah.
that cycle of implementation of new creations and technologies and social structures, that cycle is beginning again. So it'll be interesting to see what's presented on the world stage, you know?
Yeah, definitely. It's going to get interesting. Not that it hasn't been already, but
Life is interesting.
you're right. You're right. It's a party.
Never stops.
Party.
The wheel of Sarah.
Yes. So, in closing, is there anything else you want to leave people with? Any messages? Anything popping in your head before we go? Before you tell people where they can find you, but that'll be the last thing we do. Anything else
I
popping in your head that you feel like could be helpful for people these next, the rest of the year?
Just to reiterate that this experience of duality is to live on the earth realm and to be a human being. And um, the rising and setting sun is happening in your face every single day. So a little homage to energies that seem to conflict, but are actually the same, might be a good spiritual practice. Even just sitting down for a few moments and focusing on the inhalation and the exhalation. That polarity allows you to live here and is with you until the day you take your last exhalation, Saturn. And so it's an invitation. It's an invitation to see things um, very differently and opposing from how you normally see them, because there might be something there for you, something very big.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And are you giving readings? I
I
know you
am
took a
available.
hiatus, and are you
Yeah, I am
okay?
available. I can be reached for private consultation, conversation, of course, using the Vedic astrology system, Lahiri, mean node, um, at bladeofinsight@gmail.com.
And that will be in the show notes. So you can just pop open the show notes and then her email will be there. So no need to write it down. If you're grabbing a pen, it'll be available for you in the show notes. All right. Well, Christine Lamb, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us about what to expect the next few months. You're appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. So happy to be here with you.
Yeah, me too. All right. Goodbye, everyone. Take care.